Hi, I'm Kaan, and you are watching The Wrath of Minis. And this is maybe a proper introduction to say, we are making a video tutorial for beginners on all the basics about how to paint miniatures. What can you expect in this video series? Well, firstly, I'm going to kind of break it down into two very major parts. It's going to be a basic section, which is going to obviously very important. And once we kind of cover all the bases of the basics, we will then move into more advanced topics. Now, what do the basics kind of cover? Well, if you're new to the whole sort of subject of miniature painting and the craft, well, you're going to be talking about, the equipment. Obviously, we're going to be talking about paint, and different types of paints that are out there, wet palettes, paint brushes, and the various things that you need to get started in order to allow you to paint. Getting models, assembling, getting it all set up, removing mold lines and gluing it. We're going to be talking about priming it, maybe doing zenithal highlighting. We're going to be talking about layering and glazing and highlights and dry brushing, how to make a scene in a miniature form, that kind of stuff. That's what we want to do. But then really the most important part there is how we combine all of those things. And that's kind of like a theoretical, conceptual thing that you need to work on, where it's like, yes, you may know the technique individually, but like, how do we put it all together to make something feel cool in what we have in our mind and bring that out onto the miniature? Once we've done the basics, though, we are then going to shift into more advanced topics. And this, consists of like talking about textures, like, leathers and cloth and how to make, or maybe different types of gradients, doing skin tones, and finding a way that we can work more in the specific territories so that each element that we add together creates a cohesive whole. And so that is more advanced, more color theory, OSL, object source lighting, and of course non-metallic metal, NMM. And I also want to talk about why non-metallic metal is, I think, one of the most, not just interesting, but perhaps one of the more important things to learn that can help you truly elevate your painting skills. Now that might seem strange because it's just non-metallic metal, but it can actually apply to a whole lot more things than just metal. We want to convert the models that are out there and bring it to the highest expression that we want to bring it to. I want to bring it to art. Doesn't mean I'm going to get there. That's what I'm hoping for. But if you don't, that's okay. You want to get it into wargame and you just want to play? Boom, we want to make them look good. We want to make it so that people are producing cool, interesting, fun things that they are proud of. Sure, you can be proud of something today, but be proud of the next thing tomorrow, because you're continuously improving as a person, but as a painter. And that's what we're trying to do here on this channel, starting, today. And I do want to make a note about something. I don't want to sell you guys stuff. I don't want you to just get needless amount of things. There's so much stuff in the world just saying, get more, get more, get more. And I want to try to find a way that we can do this where you just don't have to be spending needless amounts of money. I wanted to create this video series about painting miniatures partly for myself, or for my past self. I got into this hobby when I was a kid, back in England, when I had first gotten brought to the attention of Warhammer or Games Workshop, and going there and playing, I think in the very early, probably in the 90s, and playing Space Hulk. And that was my first time coming into a game about dice and cool miniatures. And I mean, cool is relative, I suppose, because they're not that cool anymore, are they, compared to all the things that are out there today. But that's how I kind of got into it. And then that journey grew, and I started playing more like actual Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Fantasy, where it's like the original army block type things. And as I got older, life changes, and I moved away from it entirely. I stopped playing. I didn't have any models from back in the day. And weirdly, I had met a friend, and he was playing Warhammer 40k, and it kind of like rekindled something back in me. Maybe it was a mixture of nostalgia. I'm not really sure, but it kind of like got the cogs kind of turning again. And instead of going back into Warhammer 40k kind of immediately, I actually got into something called Kingdom Death, which is a board game with lots of miniatures. And that was the thing that kind of kickstarted me into painting. I mean, I might have painted something when I was a kid, but I have no memory of it. So this is a wholly different time. I'm painting miniatures and growing with it, watching YouTube videos, buying paintbrushes, buying paints, just getting into it and practicing on a daily basis. And it's weird, you get to that moment when you're like a beginner painter and you don't really know anything, and you're like obviously checking out the web, looking for all this information, and you get these great miniatures and you want to paint them well. You want to paint them well, but you don't know how to. You're like, ugh. Like you want to give them justice, but you don't have the skill set or the knowledge to be able to pull that off. The world of YouTube and the world of videos and learning and understanding, it's all there. It's amazing content that there's out, and you can experience and learn so much stuff. But I found it difficult to pass through all the different various voices that existed about the subject. And each person does it differently in their own way. And I found that I actually got confused in that journey through all the different people who were teaching different things, and maybe not going into great detail about any individual part of the sort of painting journey. I wanted to become a better painter. I didn't want to be in this place that I was like just thinking about being a better painter. Because those are two different things, really, you know? Wanting and really taking the time and effort to being. I've gone to Adepticon, I took a bunch of workshop classes, I painted for like 3 days straight, like pretty much from start to finish. I had never done like, 8 hours of painting, more than 8 hours of painting a day for 3 days straight. Like that's some weary stuff on your mind. And I learned things that I wanted to learn, and I learned things I didn't want to learn. And after doing that, I had taken a class from some really phenomenal painters there, because that's the cool thing about these conventions, that some of the very best come to these places to teach you. And I wanted to learn from the best, or what I consider, not the best is subjective, but more like wanted to learn from an artist that inspired me, or a style that I liked. I signed up to someone else's Patreon, Sergio Calvo Ruben, who is a phenomenal Spanish painter. I started signing up to his personal private classes. And if you are of, a level that you just want to just jump into advanced topics, learning from one of the very best painters out there, I highly, highly recommend going and doing that. It's not inexpensive, but if you want to get better, I can't think of truly a better way of doing it, because at some point you have to put that time and effort into it. And when you can quick shot, like learn immediately from a master about the inherent knowledge that they've acquired over many years, that's really invaluable. That's a real skill. That's a real thing that you can't measure. Someone can tell you something, but it doesn't mean you've learned it. And the only way you can learn it is by living through it. And eventually you have like those aha moments where you're just like, oh, that makes total sense. But it makes total sense way later rather than at the time that you were taught it. Bree, who's behind the camera here, says that there is something useful in the fact that a master who has had decades of learning something can teach you stuff. But a person who's newer on their journey can relate much more to people who are newer to painting, because they've had to go through those steps. Whereas the person who's a master has, in a strangest way, forgotten those problems because they've moved on beyond other things. And so I'm hoping that I can give you the problems that I've gone through and things that I have learned, and hopefully give it to you in such a way that you can go, oh, right, and speed you along that journey. And so I guess this video series is specifically for getting that information out in a way that I think is understandable, approachable, and a means to get that knowledge and bring it further forward into our world, into our hobby. As you start this sort of journey, and you go like on Instagram or on social media, you see all these phenomenal painters who are really pushing this medium to whole new levels. To me, it's art at that point in time. And I know art is subjective, but there are these, artists doing such cool, amazing, phenomenal things. And I do think it is a part of our time today where miniatures can kind of come to the forefront. Whereas back in the day, you know, you go to a museum and you see these ginormous paintings that take over an entire wall. Sure, that's art and it's great and it's huge and it's humongous. But today we have social media, and now we take pictures of small things, bringing it relevant to us and making it big, and we can see these things. And I think that's really cool. And they're taking these sort of old master ways, you know, lights and volumes and all this stuff and colors and textures, and bringing it into something that is so very small. And that part of this journey is kind of where I'm at today. Like that's what is fueling my progression as a painter. Someone who likes the art side of things, who wants to create more interesting, varied, textural stuff out there, and wants to continue to keep learning, growing, and expanding, becoming a better painter. I am super excited to see where miniature painting goes into the future. I'm interested in starting dialogue and not only me personally improving, which I want to do, I want to help people improve. I want to show that there is a level that people can get to, and it's not just aspiring to, but they can literally and actually achieve. And I want to create it in this comprehensive package that you can go, oh, this is great. Instead of it being just littered everywhere on different types of videos from different people who paint differently. Bringing it all together here and now. And so if you're interested, you know, now's a great time to subscribe and like the video, even putting a comment down about something that you want to be interested in learning about, because we want to take all of that information, compile it up, and make it awesome series of videos. Why do you guys love this hobby, or why do you hate it, or both? I've been there on all sides of it, and probably currently am still. However much I love this thing, I still struggle with parts of it. I don't find everything easy. That's life, isn't it? And hopefully we can make it better together. So if that all works for you, you know what to do. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.